And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. I appreciate you tuning in on this wonderful Saturday night. Hopefully, you enjoyed a week off from the Cup Series, and hopefully, you had a good Easter. We are now headed to Talladega. Uh, I don't even know where to start because Bristol did not turn out anything like we thought it would. And Talladega Xfinity race turned out nothing like I thought it would. Um, yeah, so I'm a little bit like, okay, which direction do I go here? Either way, before we jump completely into um, Talladega, let's go back to Bristol and look at the very typical Bristol race where we thought it was not going to be typical. All right. Kyle Larson. I mean, I am pretty happy the fact that Kyle Larson ended up having the race that he did because I'm a big fan of Kyle Larson's, but that was boring. That was just that. That was just an absolute butt kicking that Kyle Larson put on the field. I mean, he did it in Xfinity, so we probably should have expected. But the thing was, leading up to it, we didn't think the tires were going to last 30 laps, much less possibly go 300 laps. Uh, yeah. So sorry about heading everybody in the wrong direction, but I think I wasn't alone. I think everybody thought that it was going to be a massive tire wear, complete crazy show, and it wasn't. I don't know. Let's look at the optimal lineups, and we can move on to this week. Um, and that's not right. This part's not right at all. This is supposed to be Bristol. Here, we're just going to erase this. Bye. All right, optimal lineups from Bristol. Kyle Larson, leading 411 laps. Picked up right where he left off from the fall race uh, in 2024 and just annihilated the field. I mean, talk about domination. Back to back Bristol races for Kyle Larson just put on a clinic. I'm still a little dumbfounded, and it's been almost at this point 2 weeks removed from that race. 411 laps led, 85 fast laps. There was not anybody close. I mean, the only person who got close in points was Ross Chastain, and it's because he started 35th and finished 7th. I thought that would be right. I mean, I thought Kyle Larson would end up having a decent day. He's really good at Bristol. But, I mean, I also thought that Denny Hamlin would, and, I mean, he wasn't bad. He got almost 59.3 points. But, yeah, what a race. We're just gonna be like, okay, that was not what I expected at all from that race. I mean, honestly, a little disappointing. It, even though I'm a big Kyle Larson fan, it was disappointing in the fact that Draftkings did not go the way I thought it would go, unless you had Kyle Larson in your lineup. I mean, Ross Chastain was a pretty easy pick. I mean, AJ, I did not expect AJ to stay and continue to run in the top 10. I mean, good on AJ. He's having a phenomenal start to his year. Austin Dillon, I mean, I kind of figured that would be okay, but I didn't think Carson Hocevar would start in the top 10 and finish 11th. I mean, he didn't quite get the top 10, but he still ended up having a great day. Um, yeah, it was one of those weeks. It was just a tough week, and they happened. Uh, Not much else to say about it. Um, I and this is the tough part about this is you have to just reset and go, okay, that race turned out exactly the way it would probably supposed to turn out because the short track package in this next gen card just isn't what it needs to be. And, we kind of hoped, or at least I had hoped, that maybe they had figured something out with the cold weather and the tires, and it was going to be a great, fun race to watch, and it just didn't turn out that way. So then you begin to start to question yourself on going, okay, am I setting lineups right? And then it doesn't help that the Xfinity race today, first and second place both made the optimal lineup. I mean, it was Jesse Love and Austin Hill, who are Richard Childress drivers, and are Richard Childress just has a stranglehold on the super speedway drafting tracks and Xfinity. There's just no doubt. And they ran a perfect race almost. I mean, Austin Hill got a little lucky. I honestly agree with Jeb Burton that he probably should have won, but honestly, Jeb Burton started fifth. I, he didn't make the optimal lineup, but I think he was like seventh out of the points. Um, so the Xfinity race didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to. The Cup race didn't turn out the way I wanted it to 2 weeks ago. Um, Rockingham last weekend was kind of we don't really have any data points other than similar style tracks, and there's nothing really similar to Rockingham. Um, and no, honestly, I do not want the Cup Series to go to Rockingham yet. I want them to go, but they've got to fix this next gen car. Plain and simple. Until they could fix the next gen car, I don't want them to go to Rockingham. I don't really want them to go to Bristol or Martinsville, Phoenix, or Richmond. I mean, Richmond's 15 minutes from my house. I mean, it's the easiest race for me to go to, and I'm like, I'll go watch the truck and Xfinity race there. It's great. And it's not that the Cup race is awful there, and the softer tire at the 3/4 mile track is slightly better, but because of Rockingham's high speeds, I mean, they're running 150, 160 miles an hour around a mile track. What used to be high tire wear, but there is no tire wear at Rockingham anymore. I don't know. We're talking about something that's way on the future and probably won't happen until they get something fixed with this next gen car. Either way, all right, let's reset. We are headed to Talladega. I love super speedway Draftkings racing. I don't. I think it's entertaining to watch a NASCAR race at these super speedways because there is this edge of when's the big one going to happen. Well, Xfinity, it didn't happen. We had close to big ones, but we never had the big one today, which was unusual. I mean, you go back and look at previous races, and they just don't happen. They almost always happened. So it's very rare to ever get a drafting style track that doesn't collect a lot of the field. But if you watch the Xfinity race, they were running in groups of, I don't know, maybe 10 cars. And then there would be a group of 10 cars, another group of 10 cars. And I'm kind of being very averaging. You'd have, a group of 8, a group of 12, or whatever. But it was about, you'd have about 3 sets of 10 cars out there, give or take 2 or 3 cars. And even if something happened inside that group, you had room to miss. We're not going to see that in the Cup Series. These cars are too equal. The drivers are all very close. The speeds are going to be extremely close. The amount of air that these next gen cars create behind this car makes it extremely easy to stay within the draft. Even from about 3/4 of a second back, you get about a second behind, and you're going to lose that air bubble that you need to be in. The problem with the next gen car at these super speedways is it's all fuel mileage. The tires don't wear. They literally could run the tire that's on this next gen car. They could run the whole entire 500-mile race without ever changing tires, which actually might be better because they might actually start to get a little bit loose towards the end. But I mean, if you're going to come in and get a fuel load, it'll take at least 10 seconds or about 10 seconds to do that. You can change all 4 tires in that amount of time. So why not change the tires and have fresh tires? But tires will not be the issue. It will be absolutely fuel mileage, and track position. The best opportunity we're going to have is if we don't have a caution and we do have green flag pit stops, which we should have in stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. Um, and it's going to be real close on whether you end up having 2 green flag pit stops in stage 2. The problem is typically there's a debris caution or there's a big one. The cars are running so close together that if one person has an issue, it's going to take out the majority of the field. The field will not get spread out like it did in Xfinity. You've also got the differences where the next gen car and the next gen teams and the Cup Series are all very, very highly funded, and the drivers are just that good. I mean, they're the elite of NASCAR. So they're all going to have very equal equipment and equal abilities. Now, of course, we've got some guys that'll be in the back, but all they got to do is just hold on to the back part of the draft and not get collected in the big one. And that's why you see the Cody Wares and the BJ McLeods and the JJ Yaleys getting top 20 finishes. They're not getting really necessarily top 10s unless something really screwy happens, but you could see a BJ or a Cody Ware getting a top 20 finish tomorrow because they don't necessarily have the equipment or the pit crew to run in the top 10 and potentially be there at the end, but they could easily hang around, miss a couple of the big wrecks, and get themselves top 20s. So that's why almost everybody in the field for tomorrow's race is potentially optimal. Realistically, the majority of the guys that are starting in the top 10 will not be optimal or even somebody that I will necessarily look at going after. There's probably one driver that I will look at in the top 10 that I will have a little bit of ownership, but for them, Blaney, yes, actually, you are correct, Mark. Mark Fish, welcome to the chat. Make sure you hit the like button. I appreciate you tuning in. But yeah, Blaney is probably the only driver starting in the top 10 that I think potentially could make the optimal lineup, or at least the top 15 in points. But other than that, I mean, after watching Xfinity race today and last or 2 weeks ago, Bristol race, I start to question myself a little bit. All right, either way, what is Talladega? Talladega is a monster of a speedway. It's a super speedway. It is 2.66 miles in length, 33-degree bankings in the turns. This race length is 188 laps. Dominator points will put an asterisk on it, will not be something we need to look at, and I'll still hold to that. Even Dominator points, realistically, today were not something we looked at for the Xfinity race, and it did play a small factor for Jesse Love, but did not really play a huge factor in the way the points fell. He just finished in the top 3, started in the top 3 and finished in the top 3. That typically does not always happen, except for with the Richard Childress drivers. So, I mean, I definitely targeted Austin Hill and Jesse Love in some of my lineups. Should have targeted them a lot more than I did, but didn't really. Other track comparisons, Daytona and Talladega are really the only two. Talladega is it's wider. You can run. I mean, realistically, in the Cup car, you can run 4 wide for the majority of this race if you wanted to. There's enough room at Talladega to run it. Daytona gets a little tight if you run 3 wide. Definitely cannot run 4 wide at Daytona or Atlanta. Atlanta is really only about a 2 car length width. Maybe you can get away with 3 every once in a while. Daytona, you can get away with 3 wide for the most part. Talladega, you can run 3 wide all day from start to finish in this race. And we'll see a lot of 3 wide, especially if fuel mileage becomes any type of an issue. And they're trying to save fuel. They'll back the throttle down to 50%, and everybody will be 3 to /4 wide, and they'll just sit there and just wait for the window to open up for them to go full throttle. And then they'll go from running 170, 175 mile lap averages to 185 to 190 mile per hour lap averages. That's just the way these super speedways run. All it takes is one mistake though, and if you're all running 3 wide, 10 deep, this third place guy or fourth place guy wrecks, you're wrecking 20 cars. And that's honestly what, when you're building DraftKings lineups, that's kind of what you're looking for. So our optimal lineups from Talladega and from last year, 2024, spring and fall. I mean, once again, and I'm gonna beat this to the cows come home. There just is no other way to explain it other than do not start anybody in the top 10. If you have to or want to start somebody in the top 10, do what Fish says and run Blaney. He might be the only viable choice, really, that's starting in the top 10 that I think it would be eligible. I mean, you had 13th and 16th from the fall race make the optimal lineup. They finished second and third, but there is no optimal or no dominator. They had 4 fast laps and 2 fast laps. They led 2 laps and 1 lap. That's not a dominator by any means. So it's place differential and pricing both go into play. We didn't have anybody over $10,000 in the fall race. Spring race, we had 1, which was Brad Keselowski at $10,200. Oh, look at there. Brad Keselowski. Go figure. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Seeing a pattern here. There are guys who are just really good at this style racing and at Talladega. But either way, once again, the highest up starter was 18th, Tyler Reddick, who ended up winning the race. He led a total of 13 laps of 188. No dominator points. Dominator points do not matter. Pricing does not matter. In fact, you want to leave thousands of dollars of pricing on the table. $4,700 left in the fall, $3,500 left in the spring. If we go to 2023, we had $5,700 left in the fall and $5,100 left over in the spring for optimal lineups. Salary cap does not matter. In fact, you probably want to purposely leave money on the table because you're taking the guys from the back or the cheaper drivers. Now, here once again, I mean, you've got Ryan Blaney, who we talked about, starting in 10th, but he didn't really dominate other than win the race. He had 1 fast lap and 8 laps led. Kevin Harvick, starting in 11th, finished in 2nd, only led 11 laps, but made the optimal lineup. He was 7,300. Is that really right? 2023 Kevin Harvick was 7,300. I mean, that was 2 years ago. I'll trust my stuff here, but that seems really low for Kevin Harvick. And then in the spring race of 2023, I mean, you got a JJ Yaley. $4,600 made the optimal lineup because he started 38th and finished 11th because of attrition. But Ryan Blaney, oh look, there's Brad Keselowski again. Ryan Blaney started in 5th, finished in 2nd. He led 47. It's really not a dominator. There were 196 laps. But everybody else, 17th. So, yeah. And here's what I'm kind of talking about. So something I've kind of talked about in my previous videos, at least for this year, is what are the points that we're targeting to potentially make optimal and make the top 15 or top 14 for DraftKings points, and where are they starting from? How many fast laps they average? How many laps led they average? Well, if we look at the last 4 races at Talladega, which we just showed the optimal lineups, and this kind of has the optimal lineups on the top, and then the next 8 drivers below it, and their points totals. Well, we could see all their starting positions, and nobody started in the top 10. We had a couple of guys that started in the kind of teens area, but most everybody's 32, 30, 35, 37, 34, 21st, 26, 24, 39, 38, 28. In the top 15 or top 14 in points. Well, once you get down here to the top 14 in points, the average for the last 4 races that we're trying to target, and that's kind of how you want to target this because of the way pricing works, and you can only have a certain amount of pricing value. I target kind of the top 14 drivers to put into all my different lineups. And I run typically 80 lineups for cup races. And I do four of the 20 max, and I run 80 of the 150 max lineups. It's typically how I run this. So I end up running five different tournaments, and then I do a couple of three maxes and five max races that I kind of will hand build. But for the most part, I'm targeting who I think is going to finish potentially in the top 14 or 15 in Draftkings points, and then I just build my lineups from there, starting with who I think potentially has the best option to this could be or couldn't be somebody that would finish in the top 15 of DraftKings points. So, but either way, this kind of shows you kind of the breakdown. And once again, there's nobody starting in the top 10 at all last year for any of the Talladega races. Now, we had one person start in 12th and 13th, and a 13th and a 12th up here. So, kind of the max ceiling is, that lower teen, just above 10, is kind of where you might want to look. And it's about the same for 2023, at least for optimal. You did have Blaney in 10th, Kevin Harvick in 11th. It wasn't quite as erratic to say, but it still shows that the optimal lineup is 54 points or better made the optimal lineup. Same thing for the spring 2023, 54 points or higher is what you're kind of going for optimal. And this will make a little bit more sense when we start to get to the driver by driver breakdown and we start to play with the calculator and showing where somebody starts, where they could potentially finish, or where we think they might finish. The other thing is we have no practice data. They literally unloaded this morning, went through tech, hit the track for one lap of qualifying, and this is where they start. So we don't have any practice data to go off of like, oh, this person happened to slip in qualifying, but they were really fast in practice. That's somebody I might want to target. No, we don't know. So somebody who potentially was slow in qualifying may have just a really horrendously handling car. I mean, we saw that with Parker Raxluff. If you watch the Xfinity race today, his car was so mishandling and so not set up right that he blew a tire by lap 4, and his day was done. He didn't collect anybody else, but his day was pretty much done at that point. And it was somebody that you would target because he typically at super speedways finishes top 10 in the Xfinity Series. In fact, he finished, I think, 3rd or 4th at Daytona in the fall last year in a cup race. So, but I mean, once again, we are really not targeting people that are starting in the top 5. And I mean, honestly, I won't have anybody that's starting in the top 10. I might have a couple lineups with Ryan Blaney, but that's even a little far-fetched. It's just they don't lead enough laps. I mean, out of all these laps led, 47 for Ryan Blaney in the spring of 2023 is the highest. I mean, there's barely anybody over double digits in any of these. And the same thing for fast laps. It's just, there is no room to have a dominator in any of your lineups. It just doesn't make any sense. And this is kind of showing the breakdown of place differential, starting position, and finishing position. This is a big deal when we get to the drafting style tracks, Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. You know, if you're starting in first and finishing first, which is a really good day, you get a total of 45 points. Well, if you start in 15th and you finish in first, well, you get 59 points. Well, the only other way to make up points is through fast laps and laps led. Well, we just saw that typically nobody gets over double digits. So, I mean, even if you do hit double digits, and just barely, let's say you get 10 fast laps and 10 laps led, that's literally 2.5 points and 4.5 points. So that's 7 points added to your 45. That's 52. Well, the guy starting in 15th who finishes second is going to have 55 points. He's going to outpoint you. Andrew, what's going on, buddy? Welcome back. Hope you had a good Easter weekend. I'm just not sure we see the carnage at Dega like Daytona. Um, History says otherwise. And you could argue that the Xfinity Series didn't have a lot of carnage in it. Well, the Xfinity Series actually, honestly, doesn't have the carnage that the Cup Series has. And the Xfinity Series also does not run near as tight of a pack. The pack is much tighter in the Cup Series because of the amount of downforce and the wake that these cars put on. Very hard to pass, but very easy to stay on somebody's back bumper. So that's going to be the big difference. But no, I still think whether you see carnage or not, that still doesn't change how this place differential works. Um, if you can literally have somebody that starts in 15th and makes their way to second, and Andrew says, I have been stacking the back and not coming close to taking anything down. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Um, because I don't think it's necessarily fully stacking the back. Um, it also depends on who you're stacking in the back. I mean, going back to the fall race of last year, Ricky Stenhouse starting in 32nd, Eric Jones starting in 30th, Justin Haley starting in 35th, Carson Osavar starting in 37th, Brad Keselowski starting in 13th, and William Byron starting in 16th. Well, the next highest point getter was Cody Ware starting in 34th. Um, Zane Smith starting in 39th, got up to 21st, and was, 13 points out of making optimal lineup range? Um, I mean, that's 13 points at a super speedway is a pretty fair amount of points, to be honest. Um, that would mean he would have need to have finished 13th instead of 21st. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, your top 15 in lineups. I mean, how often do you see? Um, Ricky Stenhouse, Eric Jones, Justin Haley, Carson Hocevar, Cody Ware, Zane Smith, B.J. McLeod, and Corey LaJoy being in the top 14 of points getters. So, I mean, Andrew, I understand what you're saying, and I've had many Talladega races where I've stacked the back, and I haven't turned out well. And it's not a big secret anymore on how to put lineups together for these super speedways. It's very well known. Whereas 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when I won the Chrome Horn and won $10,000, it was not as well known on the ability to stack the back. But I mean, once again, we look at the spring race of Talladega, 36th, 33rd, 18, 22, 24. That's kind of middle of the pack. Ross Chastain in 32nd. Carson Osavar starting in 35th. And we got some Alex Bowmans. I mean, it's not necessarily all stacking the back, but and I can't remember, Andrew. Do you run how many different lineups do you run? Because that's, in my opinion, that's really the key is the ability to run 20, 40, 60, 80, or even 150 different lineups. Um, and more than likely, you're going to end up matching and splitting the pot with somebody. It's very rare now because, I mean, literally, most of the field's only targeting 20 out of the 39 drivers. You can get a little lucky with the potentially of a JJ Yaley or a Cody Ware that they might still be 8 or 9% owned, but having them matched up with everyone else is a little bit slimmer. But that's honestly it's kind of a risky play, um, because number one, their pit crews aren't as fast. Number two, um, they're not as talented. Their equipment's not necessarily as good as everyone else's. They don't have the engineers, so it's a little bit riskier. but I mean, Talladega and Daytona and the new Atlanta are absolute equalizers. Um, I mean, it's like Formula One going to a track and um, usually you max out the mini max, so that's 150 lineups. Move over to the 20 max or less because of the sims. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're running 150 lineups, the problem is you're probably going to be linked up with a lot of other similar type of lineups, and you got to differentiate a little bit somewhere. It's kind of like, you know, the fall race from last year. I can't remember what Kyle Larson was owned, but starting in 12th, I bet you his ownership was, especially because Kyle Larson has not been good at super speedways. I bet you his ownership was in the 5 to 7% range, and that becomes the differentiator. Um, if you had swapped out Kyle Larson and a William Byron or Brad Keselowski, because the price is not that far different. In fact, Larson was a little bit cheaper. You only lost 6 points or 7 points, but the differential between who ran Kyle Larson and potentially ran Brad Keselowski was probably much greater. In fact, I can pull that. I have the ownership of those races. Give me 1 second. Let me pull that up. Cup Series 2024 Fall Daytona percentage of ownership. Here, I'll just pull this over. Um, that's right. I did change my screen size a little bit. Let's see if I can make this fit correctly. All right. Oops, screwed that up. All right. Sorry, when I got my new computer, I changed a bunch of settings, so my screens don't quite fit as well. Um, what was Kyle Larson's ownership? Where's Kyle Larson? He was 15% owned for that fall race of 2024. I ran him less than that. I ran him in 5% of my lineups. Um, so honestly, I should have had more Kyle Larson. But if we go back and look at what Kyle Larson's, um, what he, oops, what his Kyle Larson had an average finish of 18.4 with only one top five, one top 10, and three top 20s. Um, so, yeah, there was no indication that Kyle Larson would do well, but that's part of the randomness of it. But that's kind of what I'm kind of saying is, I mean, it's really hard to look at. I mean, and this is what we're going up against. Is this is the ownership from the fall race at Talladega last year. 36th, 27th, 26th, 35th, 37th, 23rd, 39th, 32nd, 21st, 16th. So the top 10 most owned guys were starting 16th or 21st or worse. And that's probably who I would have targeted. I mean, Ross, uh, Briscoe, Bubba, Justin Haley, Carson Hocevar, Alex Bowman. Was probably about 11th. What's up, Wyatt? Good to have you back in. Hopefully you had a good Easter weekend off from racing and got to spend some time with family and friends. But we're talking all things Talladega and how crazy and screwy the last few races have been. Not necessarily Dega races, but Bristol completely missed that one by a mile because there was no tire wear. And then the Xfinity race earlier today had literally didn't have the big one, and RCR pretty much dominated the field again. Which I did kind of potentially think that might happen, so was running a couple of RCR lineups. But yeah, other than that, it was still all from the back. But Andrew was talking about. You think Kyle Busch may win it? Gut feeling. I mean, sure. To be perfectly honest, Kyle Busch has as much of a shot of winning it as I was going to say BJ McLeod, JJ Ailey, or Cody Ware, but that's going to be a real long shot. John Hunter Nemechek. I think both of them potentially both could easily win this race. Kyle Busch may have a little bit of an edge, but all it takes is one tire failure and one debris caution and takes out half the field. And if it happens up front, Kyle's more than likely in it. I don't know. But either way, but back to kind of what I was saying is it is random. But gut feeling, no. And then once again, when we're about ready to get into that. Let me kind of minimize this. But that kind of shows you, Andrew, if you're still here. Yeah, stacking the back is still the way to go. The problem is it's very hard to differentiate your lineups to everyone else's now. 5, 6, 7 years ago, everybody was still starting people in the top 10. They're not doing it anymore. Will I end up cool? Will I end up having some lineups with some Ryan Blaney in it? Sure. If I'm running 80 lineups, there might be 6 of those 80 lineups. So less than 10% that I'll have Ryan Blaney in. With that being said, I will also absolutely partner him up with not a full Ford stack, but a stack 4 drivers to 5 drivers of nothing but Fords or Penske's. Just like I will have a couple of mostly Toyota lineups with Joe Gibbs Racing and 2311. I'll have some Hendrick and Spire lineups out there. So this is one of the races. This in Daytona are one of the races that, just like in kind of football, you can stack a team because teams work together. They pit together, manufacturers pit together, and last year in the fall race, I was watching the replay and the audio from Kyle Larson's last 2 laps, and Kyle Larson started behind Brad Keselowski. Well, we had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and William Byron on the outside. Kyle Larson's spotter, with 1 lap to go, says, make sure you don't push the 6 to the win. That's a Ford. Because they knew they weren't going to be able to pass each other. They weren't going to have the runs. And Kyle wasn't going to force the issue. He was going to take a top 5 finish. Ricky Stenhouse was ahead of William Byron, and William Byron was pushing him. So the last thing a Chevy driver wanted to do with Kyle Larson was push Brad Keselowski, a Ford, to a win. That's why stacking teams and manufacturers at these tracks, I don't love it by any means, but I will have some lineups that will have stacks of mostly Chevys, mostly Fords, or mostly Toyotas, or all the Hendricks, all the Joe Gibbs, all the Penske's. Now, there's only 4 of them, so you still have to put some others in there. But 2 Spire drivers who are Chevy drivers who are in partnership with Hendricks, I'll put them in a group together. Now, the likelihood that you get all 4 Hendrick drivers, I need to do more manufacturers. Yeah, absolutely. Manufacturing stack at super speedways is, I wouldn't say it's a necessity, because as we've also seen, and I can't remember what race, it was sometime in the last 2 years, the Toyotas all pitted off cycle. Severely off cycle. 10, 12 laps different than the field. And it was, I think, Denny and Bubba Wallace and two other drivers that were all in Toyota. It was like the first year that um, uh, Legacy went to Toyota. It must have been last year. I think it may have been Talladega. It may have been Talladega. But they pitted super early. And they were on the track completely by themselves. It was like four or five cars. And either Denny or Bubba screwed up and wrecked all of them. But they were literally they were going to cycle through to where they didn't have to pit it again, and the rest of the field was still going to have to pit, and they were going to end up with a half a lap lead on everybody. It was fairly ingenious, but if it would have worked and you had had a stack of those cars, which were all mostly Toyotas, you were sitting in the catbird seat. The problem was they all wrecked each other. Now that whole lineup was the worst lineup in Draftkings. So yeah, stacking works, but stacking can also bite you. That's the crazy part about these super speedways. All right, let's get another driver by driver breakdown because each and every driver is going to take a little bit of time. And I hopefully can keep this under 2 hours. Because the one I did for Bristol was about 2 hours. All right. Ryan Blaney, 10,500. One of the better super speedway drivers with Ford and Penske. They are just, I mean, we can look at his stats. He's got a 12.8 average finish. He's got an average running position of 14th. He did finish 39th in the fall race last year. 20 total starts. He's got 3 wins here at Talladega with a 14.4 average finish. Okay, all that being said, that's all right here. He's starting in 9th. Well, if he gets his average finish at 12.8, that's not going to work too well. But he does have, in the last 5 races, 3 top 5s. Can he get to 5th or better, or potentially win? All right, let's see what that does. So here is the handy dandy sheet. There is no practice information, so I couldn't run anything because it would be just a blank page. I'll leave that alone. Ryan Blaney. As we saw, his average finishes a 14, 12, and an average running position of 14th. I said his average finish was 14th. That's where I kind of come up with this number, and it's kind of a guess, but it's kind of okay. This is somewhat most everybody is kind of somewhere in the teens. But Ryan Blaney starting in 9th. Let's say he finishes in 1st. Well, if we go back and look again, the average fast laps and the average laps led are about 5. Okay. But that being said, I put in everybody from here all the way down to J.J. Yaley. Fast laps and laps led at 5. Because that's the average. Well, we can manipulate this so we can see what this does. But Ryan Blaney starts in 9th, finishes in 1st. It's 56.5 points. Once again, the optimal lineup average for the last 4 races is 53.8. Does that make Ryan Blaney optimal? Pretty, yet just slightly over. It definitely puts him in the top 15 at 38. The other thing you have to kind of think about is because of his price tag, that's going to be... Price does not 100% matter, but it does still matter. So the optimal, yes, being 53.8, the higher price guys need to score a little bit better. So I moved him to 60. So just kind of bear with my math here because he's higher priced. We need a few more points from him. Where a J.J. Yaley at $5,000 doesn't necessarily need to get to 56. Now, he'll need to get well above 38. And as we've seen, the bottom line is still 52, 53. So hopefully that makes kind of sense for everybody. But we need Ryan Blaney to finish 1st, have 5 fast laps, and lead 5 laps to get to 56. Which puts him at the bottom end of potentially making the optimal lineup. Well, what happens if he scores third? That's 50.5. That now puts him out of the average optimal lineup by missing 2 spots. It's a very risky play. It's a risk I'm willing to take because he's going to have ownership because he's Ryan Blaney and he does have 3 top 5s in the last 5 races at Talladega and a win. And Penske is very, very fast. And he's also uh, the Las Vegas favorite to win this race. So all those things being said, he probably will get himself. He has a very good shot of winning this race. But if he slips at all and goes to third or fourth, he's not making the optimal lineup anymore. More than likely, I mean nobody has a 48-point optimal lineup total: 55, 51, 53.9, 54.25. Ryan Blaney slips and goes to 48. He's not making the optimal lineup. Heck, at that point, he's barely making the top 15. I mean, and that's what 3 spots from first with 5 fast laps and 5 laps led. That's the problem with starting anybody in the top 10. Like I said, I'll have some Ryan Blaney because he does have races. He does have a race in the last 4 races where he led 47 laps. I mean, let's see what that does. Let's say he still finishes in fourth, but leads 47 laps. That takes him to 59. That puts him back in the optimal lineup. So you have to go, okay, is Ryan Blaney potentially going to be the guy that, and we've only seen it once out of 4 races, that somebody leads over. Let's go back and look. What most laps led? 47 in the spring of 2023. Nobody had over 15 laps led in the fall of 2023. And for last year, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. led 19 and Tyler Reddick led 13. So it's very uncommon for somebody to go lead 47 laps. All right, well, let's take this to 15 laps led. What does that do? That takes him to 51. That still puts him just outside of the optimal lineup. And I can pretty much assure you that if this race plays out the way most super speedways run, you're having multiple people hit optimal lineups. It's just that it's the nature of the beast. But I mean, I'll split an optimal lineup with somebody because the tournaments I run in, first place is getting 20,000. I split it with 4 of the people. I'm winning $5,000. Okay, I won't cry too much. So yeah, it's risk and reward. But Ryan Blaney, you're going to need Ryan Blaney to do a lot. I mean, 51 points, like I said, doesn't put him in optimal lineup. That's leading 15 laps and finishing in top 5. So when we start to look at a Joey Logano, who's got even worse stats, just because he's got really bad luck at Dega, he's only got 1 top 20 in the last 5 races with a Penske. He's got an average finish of 26.8 after having an average running position of 15th. Okay, well, let's look at his stuff. He's starting in third. Even if he goes and finishes first, he's only going to get 50.5 points. Well, we've already decided that we need to get to 55 points to make the optimal lineup. That's not going to work. And his average finish is 16th. I mean, it's worse than that. It's 26.8, but I kind of looked at okay, I'll take his average running position. But I mean, if we plug these in and we get to an average, it's like 20th. What does that do? I mean, he's probably almost negative at that point. 9 points. That's where Joe Logano gets to. 9 points if he finishes 20th with leading 5 laps and fast laps of 5. So Joe Logano's out. He's starting in top 10. And we'll pretty much when we get to these guys that are starting in the top 10, other than Ryan Blaney, it's going to be a real quick, yeah, that's not going to work. William Byron starting in 16th is playable, much more playable. And most see why. He's got an average finish of 6.4. Now, his average running position is a 14.3. Okay, because, I mean, the draft, it shuffles around quite a bit, but he's got an average finish of 6.4. 4 of the last 5 races, he's finished in the top 10. Okay. And he won the Daytona 500. Pretty good super speedway racer. All right, well, let's 63.5 if he finishes first and leads 5 laps and has 5 fast laps. Pretty good. That's going to put him in the optimal. Well, let's say he slips a little bit and finishes 5th. That's 53.5. That takes him just outside of optimal. So we're going to need a 3rd place finish, probably 57.5. That's probably going to put him, if not optimal lineup, it puts him 7th on the optimal lineup list. So I definitely like some William Byron. He'll have some ownership. And this is what I'm saying. William Byron is absolutely playable, and he's not, and that's not stacking the back. So this is how you differentiate from taking 6 drivers all starting in the 30s. That's a full stack of the back. And you could do that. In fact, I've seen it work. Not for optimal, but the first Atlanta race with the reconfiguration, you literally could have started 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, and you would have finished like 100th in the Chrome Horn, which still pays like $100 for a $4 bet. But that's a full stack to back. But William Byron, definitely 57.5. All he needs to do is finish top 5, and he's probably going to be in the top 10 and Draftkings points, starting at 16th. William Byron's definitely playable. He will have some ownership, but will not be owned like some other people. Denny Hamlin's kind of in the same boat. He's starting in 13th. He's going to get overlooked a little bit, but he's got an average finish of 14.2, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s in the last 5 races. All right, let's see. If he finishes in first with 5 laps led, 5 fast laps, it's 60.5. That puts him in the optimal lineup. More than likely, with the averages. So he slips to 3rd, like we just talked about, 54.5. Probably takes him out of the optimal lineup, but that puts him puts him like in 7th place, 8th place in points. That's not a bad day. You're still gonna, if you have the other 5 that are in the optimal lineup and a Denny Hamlin, you potentially are still taking a tournament down, because not that many people are going to have Denny Hamlin starting in 13th. So you could easily run a William Byron and a Denny Hamlin. Yes, it's expensive, but it's super easy to get some of these cheap guys at the bottom. Pricing really isn't going to matter. Yes, you can max out on pricing, but you get $50,000. The most expensive guy is Ryan Blaney at $10,500. So yeah, I mean, let me see real quick. What does this do? NASCAR, if we take and draft the most expensive guys, how much money are we over? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are over by 9,600. Okay, that's quite a bit. That's running. I wouldn't run this lineup anyways. At least I wouldn't start with. You take Joey Logano out and Ryan Blaney out, and you've got $11,000 left over. What does this look like over here? Oops. Yeah, so at that point you could literally run John Hunter Nemechek. Still has $5,500 left over, and Shane Van Gisbergen starting in 36. 3 spots out of the worst spot. And let's say he just misses all the big wrecks, which both these guys have a tendency sometimes to do, and they also have a tendency to be involved in it. But I mean, heck, so does Kyle Larson. But that uses the entire optimal. That uses all of your lineups. But so, all right, let's keep going here. Brad Keselowski, 9,600, starting in 22nd. He's got an average finish of 13.2 with 3 of the last 5 races finishing in the top 5. And he finished second here in the fall race last year. And this is what I'm saying. People are going to overlook a William Byron and a Denny Hamlin and jump to Brad Keselowski starting in 22nd with very similar average finishes. Now, if Brad goes and finishes in first, he's going to get 69.5. All right, well, let's say he slips a little bit. Let's say he slips and goes to 6. That's 57.5. That's going to put him real close to being in the optimal lineup just by getting a 6th place finish. Now, all it takes is one big one, and all these guys are donezo. But so are most of the field. So it's just as risky to take a Brad Keselowski starting in 22nd as it is to take a Denny Hamlin starting in 13th. That's why I asked Andrew, do you run 80 different lineups or do you run 10 different lineups? If you're running 10 different lineups, it gets a lot more wonky and gets much more difficult to hit. Where if you're running 80 or 150 lineups, you can run, 3 lineups starting real cheap drivers, and you literally put one with Denny Hamlin, one with Brad Keselowski, and one with William Byron. And if one of those 3 make it through the big one, and your other 5 drivers make it, you're okay. It's a crapshoot. But Brad Keselowski starting in 22nd, finishing in 6th, gets you 57.5. I mean, that's more than Denny Hamlin having to finish in 3rd, and it's 3 spots worse. Get you 3 more points for Brad Keselowski. That's why starting towards the back, not a full stack from the back, I like. So Brad Keselowski is just as much in play, and I think he will get played more than Denny Hamlin. So if you're looking to differentiate your field, a Denny Hamlin or a William Byron, differentiate it, and you're talking what, $200 difference. You're going to have $3,000-$4,000 left over in your lineups, and this is an easy way to differentiate between these guys. Kyle Larson's and then now we look at Kyle Larson starting in 25th. He's got an average finish of 18.4. Sure, not great, not good, but he did finish 4th in the fall race at Talladega last year. And where did he finish in Daytona this year? I don't even have that stat right here. No, I've got it right here. Let's see. Larson. I do love this site. Let's see. Kyle Larson. 2025. 9 of 16. He finished 20th at Daytona, finished 3rd at Atlanta. So those are the 2 other super speedways we've had this year. And then if you go back to last year, let's see, 2024. Larson, 11th at Daytona, 32nd at Atlanta, Talladega 21st, Daytona 21st, 37th at Atlanta, and then 4th at Talladega. I mean, he is more risky. I will absolutely. And being a Larson fan, I usually fade him at these tracks because he is very, very aggressive, and he will try to make something happen that he shouldn't try to make happen. It's just the style of racing that he does. He doesn't know how to turn that off. That's why he wins a lot of the races that he wins. But if he goes and finishes 3rd at 66 points, I mean, heck, if he goes and finishes 10th, he's probably close. 52.5. Where 52.5, Denny Hamlin would have to finish 5th. It's 5 spots different. I mean, that's a big deal at these tracks. I mean, actually, it's He has to finish fourth. Denny Hamlin would have to finish fourth, and Kyle Larson can finish 10th and get the same points. I mean, both are so risky because it's a super speedway, but honestly, I think I have a little bit more faith in Kyle Larson finishing 10th than Denny Hamlin finishing in fourth. But a lot of other people are going to think the same thing. So if you're looking to differentiate, if somebody's putting lineups together, they're probably going to start a Kyle Larson because he has gotten better at super speedways or has at least gotten better finishes, and skip over Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin will end up having lower ownership than Kyle Larson or Brett Keselowski because everybody's trying to stack as far back as they can because of place differential. Where do we think Kyle Larson finishes 10th, or do I think Denny Hamlin finishes 4th? I mean, both are risky. I mean, both of them carry about the same amount of weight. So if you're looking to differentiate, you want to take the one that's going to have the lower ownership, which is Denny Hamlin. So, I mean, both of them are very playable. Both of them are perfectly fine to take. But that's how you differentiate at super speedways. And it's not stacking the back. It's stacking not the top 10. And I think that's kind of always been what I've always said. If you go back and watch any of my videos over the last 3 years, it's don't think anybody starting in the top 10. In fact, I mean, Christopher Bell starting 11th is really risky. He's got a 16.8 finish. He's only got 2 top 10s in the last 5 races. He's never finished in the top 5 other than one time out of 10 starts at Talladega. He's not super great at super speedways to begin with. So for him to finish first and get 58.5 points is really, really risky. He's probably more like 12th. Well, that's a 33 points. That doesn't even put him in the top 15 in points. And starting 11th. I don't have any interest in Christopher Bell. So literally when I start to do my lineups, I'm putting a big old X on Christopher Bell and I'm skipping him. And I'm moving on. Because why would you take Christopher Bell when you could take Chase Elliott for literally $200 cheaper, starting in 30th, with a 13th place average finish and a 12.6 average running position? Yeah, he finished 29th in the fall, but that's part of this game. Chase Elliott has also not had a great year. This is a great opportunity track for him because he has won twice here and once in the last 5 races. So I don't even need a first place. I mean, first place with leading 5 laps is 77.5 points. That's monstrous. Let's go back to our little charts here real quick. What does 77.5 points get? Well, it definitely demolishes everybody from the spring of 23. It still wins and is the highest scorer in the fall of 2023. It is the highest for the spring Daytona or spring Talladega race last year. It would be the second highest of the Talladega race in 2024. So out of the 4 races, it's first in every race except for last fall's Talladega race, and it was a real close second. So, I mean, do you think that Chase Elliott can make it to first? He doesn't even get to first. Can he make it to a top 10? Which is absolutely playable. It's 57.5. Well, that's real close to on average, makes the optimal. But I'm saying for his price tag, he probably needs to be closer to 60, but that's really close at 57.5. So when you're building lineups, everybody else is going to know this. Chase Elliott is going to be minimum 40% owned, probably closer to 55% owned, but it's still one of the better plays on the table. So you're not going to differentiate by chasing or not taking Chase. If he ends up in the top 10, he's probably going to be real close to making optimal lineup, and if you didn't have him, well, you're SOL. I'm not saying run him in 70% of your 150 lineups, but I'm definitely going to probably be even on the field with him. Then I'll find a different spot to differentiate. There's plenty of spots to do that. I mean, like I said before, you could easily go with Denny Hamlin or a William Byron starting in 16th. There's going to be enough salary cap. Salary cap is not going to be something that we are overly worried about. Kyle Busch. Andrew with his hunch thinks he wins. Okay. I mean, if that's the case, definitely go hit the sports book up and bet on him. Because what is his current betting odds? NASCAR betting odds has Kyle Busch at 15-1. So go put $10 on him and make $150. I'm not willing to do it. I don't think he finishes. I mean, he could, but even if he finishes first and only leads 5 laps, he's only getting 49.5 points. I mean, Chase Elliott literally could fall to probably almost 17th. What did I say Kyle Busch had? 42? That's 42, 49. So how far is that? 13th, maybe? 14th? Yeah, I mean, do I think Chase Elliott can get a 14th place finish before Kyle Busch can get a first? I'll take the Chase Elliott all day. That's the problem with DraftKings, is you have to play this game of, all right, do I think Kyle Busch can make it to first, or do I think Chase Elliott can make it to 14th? Which one's more probable? The probability is Chase Elliott making 14th or better before Kyle Busch gets to first. Are both possible? Absolutely. But what's the probability? Austin Cindric, 8,600, starting in 7th. He's decent at super speedways. Talladega's kind of a little bit of his Achilles heel. He'll probably lead some more laps than the average. It's kind of like Ryan Blaney has the potential to potentially lead some more laps than the average, which is 5. Could he win? Sure, but that still only gives him 54.5 points. Does that put him optimal? No. Does it put him in the top 10? Yes. But you're also saying he's going to need to win. Well, he's only won one super speedway. He's led a lot of laps at other super speedways. Let's say if he goes and leads half of the highest amount we've seen in the last 5 races. That puts him at 58.25 to finish first. Well, what happens if he slips a little and finishes 4th? Well, that's 50.25. That didn't work that well. I mean, that still puts him in the top 15 in points, but that's really risky. That's what I'm saying. Starting in the top 10 just doesn't do anything. Tyler Reddick, starting in 26th, had one really, really good race here where he won. The other races, he's been average. 15.8, 18th place average running position. 19.1 for the 10 total starts here at Talladega. Well, what does that do? Well, I mean, starting in 26, if you can go finish first, that's 73.5 points. If you think Tyler Reddick's going to get up and finish first, which he has done before. So very possible, probable, maybe not. But how far back can he slide? Can he get a 10th? Which I think is a little bit more doable. That's 53.5. That's right on that edge. And that's what you have to do. Is you have to figure out which of these drivers have the most probability of getting to where we need them to get to. Well, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, all do. Now, will they all get there? Probably not. But that's not why I don't run one lineup. I run 80 lineups. So I can literally mix and match Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson. So that's just kind of the way I run these things and kind of look at things is how many points can these guys really get? And sure, at Talladega, and Daytona, and Atlanta is the best chance, the best equalizer for almost anybody to win a race, including JJ Yeley. Just because weird stuff happens at these races. Is it probable? No, it's not probable at all. Is it possible? Sure. More probable that they'll get a top 20 at Talladega before they ever get a top 20 in a Martinsville or Charlotte. Chase Briscoe, $8,200 starting in 17th. Average finish position is 14th. This will be his second race with Joe Gibbs Racing, at a third at a super speedway. The first two didn't go so well. The 19 car has struggled at super speedways, and Chase Elliott is. I mean, he's got an average finish of 14th, starting in 17th. I mean, this is another one you could easily play. This is a differentiator. This is a sleeper. This is somebody that's going to get overlooked because he's sandwiched between a Tyler Reddick who's got a win and a Bubba Wallace who's next in the list who's got a win. Chase Briscoe doesn't have a win. He's got one top 5 finish. So he's going to get completely overlooked. People are going to jump to Tyler Reddick or Bubba Wallace and skip right over Chase Briscoe. You can easily differentiate your lineups by taking a Chase Briscoe. And you don't necessarily need Chase Briscoe to win. You can have him finish 4th. What does 4th place give us? 56.5. That's real close to being optimal. So Andrew says, I don't bet the super speedways. Too much variance. Oh, absolutely. But I mean, that's the reason why you can get a Kyle Larson at 15-1. I don't bet him either. I mean, if I had to make a bet, I would probably bet Ryan Blaney, highest finishing Ford. That's probably as risky as I would go. And let's see if that line is out yet. I don't think they are. NASCAR races, top 10. I don't have those yet. Let's see if FanDuel's got it yet. Winning manufacturer. I mean, they've got Ryan Blaney, Joe Logano, Chase Elliott to win the race. They don't. That's not a full Penske or Ford stack. I was looking for a full, like which Ford, which Toyota. I don't see it out yet. Manufacturer, yeah, they don't have it out yet. Usually Draftkings has it in the betting markets Sunday mornings. But I would go Ryan Blaney top finishing forward, but that's probably only going to be 250, which is 2.5-1. So literally a $10 bet wins you 25. That's a real risky bet in my opinion. But yeah, I'm right there with Andrew. I don't typically bet NASCAR super speedways. I will at mile and a halfs or Bristols and those types of things because there's not as much variance. So Chase Briscoe getting to a 4th place finish. I mean, he's going to get overlooked. He's going to be kind of a sleeper. Not that many Toyotas could take a shot with longer odds on their the top finisher. Sure. Out of the Toyota camp, the problem is your chalk bet is probably going to be Denny Hamlin for top Toyota. Where I honestly have a gut feeling that if he can survive the big one, I think Ty Gibbs could easily be somebody to target for a win or top Toyota win or the highest Toyota. Something about it. I probably jinxed him, but I jinx him every week. I keep thinking one of these days the kid's gonna win something. But I mean, they literally have started to steal all of the best talent. It will not surprise me if we see in the next 2 weeks that Rodney Childress, who used to be Kevin Harvick's crew chief, is now going to be the crew chief over with Ty Gibbs. I mean, Ty Gibbs has got a really good crew chief right now, but or director of competition or something over at Toyota camp. Even though Rodney Childress has, I don't know, he was with Ford, then he's with Chevy, so I guess he's not completely manufactured allianced. But I think he probably takes the year off, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, what a bummer. That had to hurt. I mean, Justin Haley didn't have a clue his crew chief was going to be fired until he read it on Twitter or X. God, that sucks. And he's probably one of the best crew chiefs in the garage. I mean, that's like literally taking Bill Belichick, putting him at Dallas, and Dallas firing him week 6 at a 3-3 record or something. It's insane. Bubba Wallace, $8,000 starting in 20th. Got to win here. Not in the last 5 races. Not in the next gen era. He's got a 22.6, 16.8. Starting in 20th. Ugh. All right. So we don't think he's probably going to finish in first. When he did, he got 67.5 points. All right. Where do we think realistically? I mean, on the high end ceiling, I'll put as a top 5. That's 57.5. Well, okay. Let's say he slips to 11th. 44.5. Still makes it viable to play. Probably puts him 11th, 12th on the points totals for DraftKings. I mean, it's not a bad play. I'm not going to be super heavy on Bubba Wallace, but I'm not going to be super light on Bubba Wallace either. I'll probably be 15 to 20% ownership. I'll be kind of middle of the road. Alex Bowman starting in 18th. Got an average finish of 16th. He actually is kind of my sleeper pick to win, and I think he's 30 to 1 to win. But that's a real risky bet. All bets at Talladega are risky. We just talked about it. But Alex Bowman, if he can happen to finish in first at 65.5 points, I think, let's see, he finishes 7th, 51.5. I mean, that's a pretty good. I don't mind the Alex Bowman play. In fact, I like the Alex Bowman play honestly better than I like the Bubba Wallace play. And Alex Bowman is looking for a rebound after won the pole at Bristol and then had engine troubles. And he was running top 3 when that happened. He was, if not second best, third fastest. Next to Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. So he's probably looking for a little bit of rebound, and he needs to get a good finish. If he could just miss the big one, yeah, I don't mind some Alex Bowman. I mean, finishing in 7th puts him real close to being optimal with his price. Ross Chastain will be super heavily owned starting in 32nd. It's just not even funny. If he finishes first, which absolutely is possible, he's got to win here. He's got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, and then 12 total starts. In the last 5 races, he's got 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, 23.4. So his average finish is not great. His average running position is 17.8. I mean, starting in 32nd, that's 79.5. Let's just go. Let's say he has just an absolute mediocre race and finishes 15th. Well, that's 48.5. That's 3 points better with Alex Bowman having to finish in 7th and Ross Chastain having to finish in 15th. So what does Ross need to finish? 13th? 14th. 14th. 50.5 to 51.5. 7th or 14th. Both of them are very easily capable if they can survive and make it to the end. That's the whole thing about this race. It's who do you think can survive to the end? Now, Ross Chastain, like I said, If he isn't 40% owned tomorrow, I will die laughing because he will absolutely be 40% owned right there with, who did I say earlier? Carl Larson? Oh, Chase Elliott. Yeah, Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain are going to be 40% owned. Right there is two people you could easily put into a lineup together that could easily be potentially optimal. But don't don't get too far ahead of yourself on these because literally three of the five guys that were starting towards the back in the Xfinity race didn't finish the race in the Xfinity race. And there was little to no attrition. There's a reason why they're starting back there. Something was amiss for their qualifying. And they didn't hit the wall, as far as I know. I only got about halfway through qualifying before the Xfinity race started today. So I honestly really have not watched it. But I didn't see anything on Twix that told me that Ross Chastain had a real issue in qualifying. And they probably could easily just be set up for a much more balanced car instead of a one lap fast car. I mean, these guys have different agendas and different setups. Michael McDowell starting in 14th. Honestly, I think this is starting too far up, to be perfectly honest. Michael McDowell lately has not been great. He ever since he won Daytona in 2021 or 2020 or 2021, he has not been. He's been a great qualifier at these super speedways, but has not had the finishes that he used to have. And the reason he used to have really decent finishes at these super speedways is because he was used to be in really kind of cruddy equipment, to be honest, and would just hang out in the back and let the big ones happen. And he would be one of 15 drivers that still had a clean car with 20 laps to go. And he would get himself into the top 10. He was like the easiest person to pick at super speedways. And then he got a win. And then he started qualifying really, really well. And then you're like, well, you qualified too well, dude. I'm not taking you. You're gonna fall to the back, wait for something to happen. And now he's getting collected in those. So if by miraculous he finishes in first, he'll get a 61.5. But honestly, he's going to be lucky to finish where he starts. Well, that's 32.5, and that's a no-go for me. Here's another one. You can add him to the list. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Alex Bowman, and Chase Elliott. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 35th. Won this race last fall, so he is definitely top of mind for everyone. He has 2 wins at Talladega. He's got 2 wins at Daytona. That's where all of his wins come from. He is an extremely good super speedway racer. Starting in 35th with a 13.2 average finish, 12.7 over his full career at Talladega. Let's say he does get to his average finish of 13th. That's still 55.5 points. So you literally have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. that can finish 13th getting 55 points. Ross Chastain finishing in 14th getting 50.5 points. So that's 106 points for 2 guys. Then we take a Chase Elliott finishing in 14th at a 48.5. You're now at 150 points. Well, what was the optimal lineup for 382? You've already got 150. A little over 150 for 3 guys. So you need to have 1 or 2 other guys to do really, really well, get 60, 65 points. But you're also going to be stacked with half the field. So my guess is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is probably at 40 to 50% owned, along with Chase Elliott, along with Ross Chastain. So those are going to be the 3 guys so far that are going to be the absolute highest owned. Because they just got to finish in the top 20, realistically, and are going to be top 15 in points, if not potentially making the optimal. All right, Chris Buescher. Starting in sixth. I mean, he's got a super speedway win at Daytona, but does not have one at Talladega. And he's got an 18th place average finish starting in sixth. Even if he finishes first, it's a 53.5. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who won the race last fall, leads a 13th and still outscores Chris Buescher by 2 points. Chris Buescher, not interested. Starting in the top 10. Todd Gillen, this is you're having to get a really, really far stretch here. I mean, he does have a 12.2 average finish. He's typically missed the big ones. What is Todd Gillen's average starting spot? Todd Gillen's average starting spot is 17th, and he has starting in 15th. But he's got to ever finish at 12.2. So he has a fairly good track record of missing most of the big ones. Does that catch up with him this week? Maybe, maybe not. Front Row Motorsports has had really good cars at super speedways. That's where Michael McDowell just came from. Does he finish first? It's a little, that's asking a little much. So let's go ninth. Well, that's 44.5. And that's being generous. So whenever we get to his average of 13th, what does that give us? 35.5. That's just on the outside of the top 30, the top 15 that we're looking for, 36 points or more. Ty Gibbs starting in 10th. I don't like it as a DraftKings play. I don't mind taking a top 10 or top 5 finish in the betting markets for Ty Gibbs, but yeah, a 27.6 average finish at Talladega with only one top 20 for 5 starts. Does not play super well when you're starting in 10th. But like I said, they've got new crew chiefs, they've got new car chiefs, they've got new engineers, they've got a ton of new stuff around Ty Gibbs. And lately, the last 3 races, he's actually had really good finishes. I think he finished 3rd at Bristol last week, and he was one of the fastest drivers on the track towards the end of that race. Let's say he finishes 5th. That's 47.5. That puts him squarely and then probably 9th, 10th, 11th in the most DraftKings points. So if you think he can get a top 5, you might want to play him, but it's really, really risky because he has an average finish of, what did I say, 27.6 with an average running position of 21.3. It's just not good. It's very, very risky, at least in the DraftKings world. It's risky on both plays, but I'd be willing to take him as a top 10 or taking a long shot of, the top highest Toyota. So I will be fading off of Ty Gibbs, just like probably most of the field. Carson Hocevar starting in 28th. Spire has been, especially with Carson Hocevar, they've had really, really fast cars. They have run at some points in races top 5. What did he finish? 2nd at Atlanta earlier this year? Similar. What did he finish at Daytona? I don't know where he finished at Daytona. Let me see. Daytona. Carson Hocevar. I think he ended up having issues. Carson Hocevar. Where is Carson? 30th. Yeah. He ended up having some troubles. But starting in 28th, I don't mind taking some shots of Carson Hocevar. It's as risky as anybody else. He doesn't need to finish first. That would give you 75 points. That's a huge point day. 10th, 55 points. That puts him probably real close to being optimal at his $6,900 price tag. I don't mind potentially taking some shots on Carson, and I think he probably is going to be a 20% owned type of driver, and that's probably where I'm going to probably end up. Maybe I might even be a little bit ticker on the high side than that. Austin Dillon starting in 5th. Way outkicked his coverage. Even if he finishes first and leads 5 laps, it's 52.5 points. There's nothing there that interests me. I mean, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, um, Carson Hocevar, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. all finished in the top 10, and they beat him handily in Draftkings points. Josh Berry starting in 8th, same thing. Starting too far up, just too risky. There's not enough. There's not enough Dominator points, and they're just not going to be able to get Dominator points. You just can't do it at super speedways. Even if he finishes in first, it's 55 points. It's not there. Suarez starting in 24th with a 16.2 average finish. If he can finish in 5th, it's 61 points. So, I mean, do you think Daniel Suarez has a top 10 day tomorrow? Sure. I mean, any driver in the field could have a top 10 day tomorrow. The likelihood is he's got a 16.2 average finish with only 2 top 10s. 3 top 10s out of 16 total starts. Kind of risky. Possible. A little risky. He's one of those Chevy drivers that, all he's got to do is kind of grab a hold of the coattails of, who's starting next to him? Kyle Larson. Grab the tail end of Kyle Larson and follow Kyle Larson through the field, and just hopefully the two of you don't end up in the big one. Sure. I mean, it's easily possible for Daniel Suarez to get up there. It's as possible for Daniel Suarez to get up there as it is Kyle Larson, and probably a little bit safer. Other than for some reason, Daniel Suarez seems to have a big red dot on him all the time. He's had some really bad luck. I mean, do you think his luck changed around? Maybe. Ryan Preece, who has had some phenomenal races this year, but starting in 4th is way, way too risky. He's a really, really good short track driver. He's just had some really rough luck at super speedways, so I don't have a whole lot of interest in Ryan Preece starting in 4th. Like I said, I don't have much interest in anybody other than Ryan Blaney starting in the top 10. Eric Jones at $6,400 starting in 34th. I mean, here's another one. He's got a 15.8 average finish. 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s in the last 5 races starting in 34th. Put him in the same group with Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski. Yeah, I mean, he absolutely, this would be a stack the back. Yeah, what did I say? Let's see. Oops. Got logged out of Draftkings. I gotta sign in and wait for a text message. Hate when they do this. All I want to do is just plug in. Oops. All right, NASCAR draft. All right, so we said Chase Elliott. And then we said Ross Chastain, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and now Eric Jones. We could put in the mix. And we still have $19,400 or $9,700 left. Justin Haley's coming up in a second. He's starting in 37th at $6,200. That now leaves $13,200 for our last and final driver. And this is stacking the back. This is absolutely what we call stacking the back. No doubt about it. Who else did you put back there? That's really, really potential viable to actually have a decent race. I mean, you could do Carson Hocevar at 6,900. I mean, you could do anybody. You've got more than enough salary cap. But realistically, you put a Tyler Reddick. It still leaves you with $4,800, and your highest starter is starting in 26th. That's a stack from the back. So, there you go. There's your stack from the back lineup. Eric Jones, 34th, 15.8 average finish. I mean, if he just goes and gets his average finish, if he gets first, he gets 81.5 points, which is he'll be the highest price. He'll be the highest point guy of the day. Gets his average finish of what, 16th or 15th? That's 48.5. Not quite optimal lineup range, but for his price tag, 50.5 gets him real close. Go and get a 12th place finish, and you probably are in the optimal lineup at that point at 56.5. So Eric Jones will absolutely be one of the higher owned guys. Just my personal opinion. But super high owned. 35-40% plus. Noah Gragson next in line here, starting in 27th with a 19.8 average finish over 4 starts. Yeah, I mean, go and get your average finish at $6,300. I mean, if he finishes first, he gets almost 75. Sure, possible, but not very probable. Let's say he gets 20th. He gets a 33.5. That's not going to make the top 15 points. Let's say he gets to 15th, 43.5. That puts him probably about 12th on the board. If he can get to a top 10, that probably puts him real close to being optimal. Can Noah Gragson make up 17 spots and finish in 10th place? Potentially make the optimal lineup and probably not be super heavily owned? Sure, I'll take. This is a way you differentiate your field. He's probably going to be 15 to 17% owned because most people are going to gravitate to Eric Jones at 6,400, where $100 cheaper is Noah Gragson starting in 27th. And honestly, it's not that big of a difference of a play. So, yeah, I'll have some Noah Gragson because I think he gets overlooked. And then he's got Justin Haley on the other side of him, another $100 cheaper, starting in 37th with a 16.2 average finish. So I mean, you could literally take Justin Haley, Noah Gragson, and Eric Jones in a lineup, and at that point, you could literally play the 3 most expensive guys in the field, and it doesn't even come close. But yeah, Justin Haley, 37th, if he happens to finish first, which he has done before at Daytona, he has a super speedway win in the Cup Series. Been a while. It was a rain delay, so take all that for what it is. 84.5 points. Be the highest point guy in the board. But let's say he just gets to 15th. 53.5 at $6,200. It puts him in the optimal lineup. And there's another one. You could literally go Eric Jones, Justin Haley, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and somebody else. I mean, there's a ton of different ways to differentiate the field. AJ Allmendinger starting in 19th with an average finish of 26th. For some reason, AJ always seems to find the big ones here. But even if he happens to survive and finishes in first, 66.5 points. That's optimal lineup, definitely. But more than likely, I think he's best at maybe a 15th place finish, maybe even a 10th. But we'll be generous, give him a 10th. That's a 46.5. Probably not optimal lineup range, but definitely top 15. 10, 11, 12. Highest point getter for the day. Ty Dillon starting in 21st. I mean, honestly, I think Ty Dillon and AJ Allmendinger, I think their ceiling is about where they're starting at. I just don't. We'd have to have some really good attrition, and they not be involved in that attrition to really do much. But a first place finish gives him 68.5. Let's take him down to 15th. It's a 37.5. Might scratch the top 15 in total points. At $6,600, it might be okay. Zane Smith starting from the pole. Congratulations to him on getting his first NASCAR Cup pole, but I have absolutely no interest. Even if he finishes in first, it's a 48.5 day at best. Cole Custer, same thing. Starting in 12th, it would be his, other than his win in Kentucky, would be his, if he were able to win, would be miraculous. I think he'll be lucky to finish 12th. And by finishing 12th, you might get, 35 points? 36 points? 34.5 points. So yeah, not really interested in Cole Custer. Riley Herbst starting in 23rd. He does have a 17.5 average finish. He does have at least a little bit of experience of racing Cup Series here at Talladega. Um, let's for fun, let's see if he can get to his average finish of 17.5. It's 35.5. Puts him probably close to a top 15 in total DraftKings points. But it's really risky at 5,700. Yeah, so I would much rather take a John Hunter Nemechek starting in 29th, even though his average finish is 32nd. Um, it's more room to wiggle, but not a ton. I don't love the John Hunter Nemechek play, but he's definitely playable. Um, yeah, I mean, if he gets first, it's 76 points, but that's probably improbable. Not impossible, but improbable. 17th is 41.5. So I kind of need a top 20 out of John Hunter Nemechek for him to have an okay day, and be close to making optimal. What does 20th give us? 35.5, right close to that 36. Shane Van Gisbergen starting in 36. I mean, he's had some really, really rough luck, and his pit crew has not been kind to him. Um, I'll have a little bit of ownership. I think he'll be more owned than he should be, but does have a 21.5 average finish. Out of all the tracks, this is one of the better tracks that he can just wait it out and ride in the back. The problem is you ride in the back and you could easily get taken out by JJ Yeley or Cody Ware, which has had been with Shane. I don't understand why. Anthony Alfredo starting in 31st. He got a top 10 finish today in the Xfinity race. And if we look at his average finish, he's got an average finish of 13th for 4 starts at Talladega in the Cup Series. I didn't even have an idea that he had 4 starts in the Cup Series. But in the last 2 out of 5 races, he's got an average finish of 15th. So, I mean, Anthony Alfredo at $5,300 goes out and gets his average finish of 15th or 14th. We'll just go 15th. 47.5 points. That may not put him into the optimal lineup, but at $5,300, that's going to put him 8th, 9th on the board. I mean, that's pretty good. BJ McLeod, other than, I mean, Daytona is really good for BJ, but BJ has had some struggles at Talladega. They I know they race similar, but they just race fairly differently. I mean, can BJ get a 25th place finish? What does that give him? 32.5 points. Very possible. Um, so he would need to finish at least 25th or better to start to be somebody that in a really weirdly weird optimal lineup situation would he make it there. 22nd probably puts him in the top 15. Probably still not optimal. He probably needs to get a top 17th or better. And kind of the same thing for Cody Ware and JJ Yeley. Cody Ware has an average finish of 22.7, starting in 33rd. It's just, these are just, you're going to need a ton of attrition for these guys to do anything. Finishes in 20 seconds, that's 33.25 out of $5,100. That puts him top 20, but I don't think that's going to be enough. JJ Yeley starting in 39th, dead last on the field. Get to 15th, that's a 54.25. And if he can get to 23rd, 37.25, probably puts him in the top 15, but that's probably about the best. All right, so Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ross Chastain absolutely are going to be highly, highly owned. William Byron might be a little bit lesser owned and could be kind of a sneaky pick. Eric Jones, Justin Haley all have decent super speedway finishes in their past. Anthony Alfredo, Shane Van Gisbergen are very, very risky, but possible. Carson Ostervar, I don't mind taking some shots there. But yeah, your your big high end, heavily 40 to 50% owned Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ross Chastain, Justin Haley, Eric Jones will absolutely be very heavily owned, but for good reason. They have the best probably opportunity to get to optimal lineup. Guys that I will be absolutely fading off of and not have no interest in: Kyle Busch, Joe Logano, Ryan Preece, Austin Dillon, Zane Smith, 1 through 5. Have absolutely no interest in. Don't really have much interest in Josh Berry, Cole Custer, Michael McDowell, Chris Buescher. Bell could be potentially playable. Austin Cindric, nope. Ryan Blaney, I'll have a little bit of Ryan Blaney just in case he goes and leads another 47 lap race or something. Denny Hamlin and Todd Gillen, Todd Gillen, that's asking a lot starting in 15th. So either way, that's going to be a wrap for tonight's Dega preview show. I appreciate you tuning in. I did keep it under 2 hours. I still need to get it shorter than this. But when we start to do all these actual driver by driver breakdown and where they need to finish, where they could finish, where they might finish, especially at a just roll of the dice type of track like Talladega, it just is what it is. Sometimes you got to get lucky. I hate when there are too many good plays, hard to solo take down a tournament. Yeah, that's where you're going to have to pull that differentiation card. You're going to have to pull and put in there a 16th place William Byron, a probably lower owned 25th place starting Kyle Larson. You know, you can always potentially take an AJ Allmendinger. I don't love that play, but it will be very, very heavily under-owned. Trying to get to him right now. So, I mean, what does AJ need to get to? A 7th place finish? 52.5? Probably a little bit more. Probably like a 6th? Yeah, if AJ Allmendinger starting in 19th gets to a 6th place, that's 54.5 points. My bet is AJ is 5 to 6% owned at best. But that is an avenue to differentiate. Dylan Gregson will probably get completely overlooked because he's sandwiched between Justin Haley starting in 37th and Eric Jones starting in 34th. And it's not that much of a difference. And a 54.5 for Noah Gregson is a huge win, and that probably puts him in the optimal lineup. And that's just got to get to finishing in the top 10. So that's kind of what I'm saying is, taking some Noah Gregsons. Trying to scroll through here real quick and see who else might be. I mean, Carson Hocevar could be in play. No. Ross, no. Alex Bowman will probably get overlooked. Bubba Wallace could possibly get overlooked. A lot of people like to play Bubba Wallace on super speedways, though. Reddick will probably be pretty heavily owned. Elliott definitely. Bell's risky, but will not be heavily owned because he's going to need to get into the top 3. Larson, of course, we've talked about Brad Kay, but Brad Kay starting in 22nd may get overlooked with a lot of people targeting the guys that are starting in the 30s. Denny Hamlin starting in 13th is probably going to get overlooked because people are going to potentially go for Ryan Blaney. I don't think Joey Logano gets much ownership starting in 3rd. William Byron starting in 16th will probably have a fair amount. There's ways to differentiate. But yeah, you will have some lineups that will be nothing but the guys that are starting in the 30s. And it's not that it's a bad play. The problem is you just have to be fully aware that if that does turn out, you're going to be splitting the pot with a lot of different people. Andrew says, I was winning the Xfinity Engineer last week with 11 to go, and then it fell apart. Ekis killed me. Yeah. I think you sent me the message on on DraftKings, and it's just, I mean, DraftKings and daily fantasy sports, it could be the easiest way to go from the bottom to the top or the top to the bottom literally within 2 minutes or 1 minute. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much things changed. Today in the Xfinity race, they originally had Jeb Burton winning, Love in second, uh, Justin in third, and Austin Hill in fourth. And I was not doing great by any means. I had like $120 in, and I was sitting on like $80, so I was going to be net loss of 40. Then the final lap happens, and it was at 80. And because they flip flopped those top four guys by one spot, I mean, Austin Hill went from fourth to first, and Jeb Burton went from first to second, and so on. Took me from $80 down to $62. I mean, it's an $18 swing, but I mean, okay, whatever. But still, that's how quick four drivers, just flipping those four drivers and within those four spots will literally change the dynamic. It's one of those. I've the one night that I won the $10,000 chrome horn from Daytona back 3 or 4 years ago, I literally sat there and would not take my eyes off of DraftKings because it kept going first, third, second, first, third. After the race was over, for like an hour, I'm like, did I win? Did I not win? Oh darn! Did I win? Oh no, I didn't win. Did I win? And I finally ended up winning. But yeah, this DraftKings is and NASCAR is not for the weak of heart by any means, and you just learn to take your lumps because odds are typically you're going to finally get one, and that's all it takes to get back. I mean, I don't know, I'm probably $25,000-$30,000 up over the course of 6 years. But I've had weeks and weeks of down. Pop. That's all it takes. One pop. And you get it all back. And then some. So it's fun. It keeps the racing interesting. It keeps NASCAR interesting. Just like football, baseball, and the rest of it. That's why people are so drawn to daily fantasy sports. It makes the game just a little bit more important. And the random wide receiver, random kicker, random seventh batter in a lineup, or the random guy that's starting 30th in DraftKings for NASCAR. You get to know the game better. That's why I love it. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're almost at 2 hours. I'm going to let everybody get off of here. I'm going to go have a beverage and get some sleep so I can set up all of my stuff for tomorrow and watch hopefully a very exciting and good race tomorrow at Talladega. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everyone showing up. And yeah, I'm working on new intro songs and outro songs because I got hit with a copyright, and I don't want that. So either way, appreciate you tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and good luck. Let me know if you take down a tournament. Would love to hear about it. Have a good night.
Dead grass. electric vein.